Her hand trembled so much that the coins slipped through her fingers and rolled across the floor. Each one echoed like an alarm bell in the silence of the still-closed store. Kneeling on the cold floor, with her neatly pressed uniform outlining every curve of her exhausted body, Natalia tried to gather the scattered coins while tears ran down her black face and left small damp marks on the badge hanging on her chest. It was 5:40 in the morning. The store would only open at 6, but she had already been there for 20 minutes, organizing the register, counting change, preparing the cash drawer. She always arrived early. She always did everything perfectly. But that morning, her hands simply would not obey. On the other side of the entrance, watching through the display window still without the lights on, was Leonardo Moretti. Dark cap, simple jacket, worn sneakers. No one would imagine that this ordinary-looking man was the owner of one of the largest retail chains in the country. A billionaire. Founder. The man whose name appeared on inauguration plaques and in financial reports that moved millions. But there, in that moment, he was just another invisible employee making a surprise visit. Leonardo had planned this for weeks. He wanted to see how things really worked far from the polished numbers that reached his desk. He wanted to smell the reheated coffee in the break room, hear the real conversations, observe the gestures no one rehearsed for meetings. What he did not expect was to see that. A black woman, her braids pulled into a tight bun, crying alone before the sun had fully risen. Crying like someone who no longer has the strength to hold it in. Like someone who is at the limit. He entered through the side door, the same one the employees used. He showed a temporary badge he had prepared with a false name. No one questioned it. After all, it was common for the company to hire temporary workers to help during busy periods. Natalia did not notice his presence right away. She was too busy trying to pull herself together, wiping her face with the back of her hand, taking deep breaths as if trying to push the pain into a dark corner of her soul. When she finally lifted her eyes, she came face to face with Leonardo standing a few meters away, holding a broom and pretending to sweep the hallway. "Sorry," she said quickly, her voice faltering. "I'm almost done here. I'm really sorry." "Apologies." The first word that came out of her mouth was an apology. Leonardo nodded silently and continued sweeping, but his eyes never left her. He watched as Natalia stood up too quickly, swayed slightly, placed a hand on the counter to keep from falling. He watched as she blinked several times in a row, trying to clear her blurred vision. He watched as her hands kept trembling while she organized the bills in the register. 6 o'clock. The doors opened. The first customers came in with that morning rush of people who want to get everything done quickly and leave. Natalia put a smile on her face. A trained, mechanical smile, the kind that does not reach the eyes. "Good morning, welcome," she repeated like a mantra. Leonardo kept watching. He swept the same hallway 3 times. Organized shelves that were already organized. Pretended to check price tags. All to stay nearby without raising suspicion. And then he noticed something disturbing. Every time the store manager passed near the register, Natalia shrank. Literally shrank her shoulders, lowered her head, avoided eye contact. Like a cornered animal in the presence of a predator. The manager was a tall man, broad shoulders, hair slicked back with gel, and a permanent expression of superiority. Rodrigo Santos. Leonardo knew the name from performance reports. Excellent numbers. Targets met. Productive team. But there was something there that the numbers did not show. "Natalia, did you check the stock in the beverage section?" Rodrigo asked without looking at her, his eyes on his phone. "Yes, sir. Everything is fine." "Are you sure? Because last week you said everything was fine and 3 boxes of soda were missing." I checked twice today. Everything is recorded." Twice is not enough if you get it wrong the first time. He finally lifted his eyes from the phone and stared at her. "Go there and check again. Now." Natalia swallowed hard, murmured an almost inaudible "yes, sir," and ran from the register, leaving a line of customers waiting. Leonardo felt something burn in his chest. Anger. Shame. Guilt. That was happening in a store that carried his name. Under his responsibility. With his money paying the salaries. He did not know it yet, but he was about to discover that what he had seen so far was only the tip of a much darker iceberg. If you are enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Leave a comment telling us what you think and which city or country you are watching from. Your participation is very important so that we can continue bringing stories that move and make people reflect. Natalia returned from the stockroom with her face even paler, if that was possible on her black skin, which now looked gray with exhaustion. Her hands carried a clipboard with notes that she checked obsessively, as if her life depended on those numbers. Leonardo had positioned himself strategically near the employee break area, folding empty boxes and pretending to be busy. From there, he could hear everything. So, did you check it properly this time? Rodrigo asked without lifting his eyes from the computer. Yes, sir. Everything is correct. I recorded item by item. Great. That's all you had to do the first time. He finally looked at her, and there was something in his smile that made Leonardo's stomach turn. You know, Natalia, I receive at least 5 resumes a week from people wanting to work here. People who don't make mistakes. People who don't show up with swollen eyes from crying so much. Her blood froze. Leonardo saw the transformation happen in real time. Her shoulders curved even more. Her breathing sped up. Her fingers gripped the clipboard so tightly that her knuckles turned white. My mother is sick, sir. I spent the night at the hospital and do you think customers want to hear about that? Rodrigo stood up from his chair and stepped closer to her. He didn't shout. He didn't need to. The low, controlled voice was even more threatening. Do you think that when someone comes in to buy bread and milk, they want to be served by someone who looks like she just came from a funeral? No, sir. I'm sorry. Save your emotions for home, Natalia. Here you wear the uniform and do your job. Here you smile, serve well, and don't give reasons for complaints. Is that clear? Yes, sir. You can go back to the register. Natalia practically ran back to her post. Leonardo needed every ounce of self-control not to drop the boxes and go straight to confront that man. But he knew he needed to see more. To understand the extent of it. The following hours were a lesson in silent cruelty. Rodrigo didn't shout. He didn't curse. He didn't do anything that could be easily recorded or reported. He was surgical. Precise. He knew exactly where to press to cause pain without leaving visible marks. Natalia, why is there a line at your register? Natalia, you charged the wrong price for this item. Natalia, the customer complained that you were rude. She wasn't. Leonardo had heard the entire conversation. Natalia, your uniform is wrinkled. Natalia, you're taking too long. Natalia, you're being too fast and making mistakes. It was impossible to get it right. The rules changed according to his convenience. And the worst part, no one did anything. Leonardo watched the other employees. A cashier next to her, a young man in his early 20s, looked away every time Rodrigo humiliated Natalia. The section supervisor pretended to be busy with paperwork. The security guard at the door studied his own phone with exaggerated attention. Everyone knew. Everyone saw. No one intervened. During the lunch break, Leonardo followed Natalia to the small break room. She sat in a corner, opened a lunchbox with rice and beans, but didn't eat. She just stared at the food as if she didn't have the strength to lift the fork to her mouth. Hard day. Leonardo ventured, sitting at a respectful distance. She looked up, surprised. She had forgotten there were other people there. Oh yeah. It always is. She tried to smile, but couldn't. How long have you worked here? 3 years. And has it always been like this? Natalia stared at him for a long moment, as if she were deciding whether she could trust that stranger. There was something in his eyes that made her want to speak. Maybe it was the exhaustion. Maybe it was the loneliness of having no one to confide in. Before it was different, she said softly, almost a whisper. There was another manager. Things were normal. We worked, had good and bad days, but nothing like this. Rodrigo arrived a year and a half ago. At first it was calm, but then what? Then he realized no one was going to stop him. Natalia closed the lunchbox without having eaten anything. You know when you realize you're alone? That you could scream and no one would hear? That's how I feel every day. Leonardo felt a tightness in his chest. How long had that woman been silently asking for help? And how many others were in the same situation in other stores in the chain? Why don't you report him? Natalia laughed. A bitter, humorless laugh. Report to whom? The owner of the chain? Do you think a billionaire is going to care about a store cashier? He doesn't even know I exist. She picked up her bag and stood up. Besides, I need this job. My mother depends on my salary for her medication. If I get fired, she dies. It's as simple as that. She left the room, leaving Leonardo alone with his thoughts and a devastating truth. That woman was right. He didn't know she existed. Until yesterday, Natalia was just a number on an employee spreadsheet. But now he knew. And now he had a choice to make. Leonardo did not sleep that night. He sat on the balcony of his penthouse, looking at the illuminated city below, thinking about Natalia. About her trembling hands. About her constant apologies. About the way she shrank her body every time Rodrigo came near. He had built an empire. Created jobs for thousands of people. He thought he was doing good. But what was he really building? Prisons with badges and uniforms? At 4 a.m, Leonardo made a decision. He picked up the phone and called Daniel, his director of human resources. I need all the complaint records from the Avenida Central store from the last 2 years. I want to know how many reports were made, how many were investigated, and what the consequences were. Sir, it's 4 a.m. I know what time it is, Daniel. I need this by 8. No exceptions. He hung up before the other man could protest. Then he called Claudia, the legal director. I want you to review all the internal reporting protocols we have. I want to know how many people used the channel in the last 3 years and what happened in each case. May I ask the reason for this urgency? You'll find out soon. The next morning, Leonardo returned to the store. Same disguise. Same cap. Same posture of an invisible employee. But this time, he had a plan. At 7:15, Rodrigo arrived in his imported car, parked in the manager's spot, and entered through the main door with the arrogance of someone who feels untouchable. Leonardo followed him with his eyes, memorizing every gesture, every expression. At 7:30, during the morning meeting with the team, Rodrigo made a point of humiliating Natalia in front of everyone. Everyone, I'm going to use Natalia as an example of what not to do. Yesterday she made 3 pricing errors, delayed 2 lines, and even had the audacity to bring personal problems to work. He looked directly at her. This is not therapy. This is work. If you can't handle the pressure, the door is right there. The other employees looked at the floor. Natalia's eyes were filled with tears, biting her lower lip so hard that Leonardo feared she might bleed. No one said anything. No one defended her. And it was at that moment that Leonardo realized something the reports would never show. Silence was complicit. Fear had become the culture of that place. At 9 o'clock, Leonardo asked to go to the bathroom and called his personal assistant. Marcos, I need you to do something for me. Discreetly. Yes, sir. I want you to contact the mother of an employee named Natalia Santos. Find out which hospital she is in, what the treatment is, how much it costs. And I want you to cover all medical expenses. Everything. From beginning to end. Without anyone knowing it was me. May I ask why? Because I need that woman to know she can leave this job if she needs to. That she has a choice. That she is not trapped. Understood, sir. Leonardo returned to the sales floor and continued his silent observation. At 10:30, he witnessed Rodrigo scold Natalia for drinking water during her shift. Are you here to work or to have a picnic? Sorry, sir. I was just thirsty. Thirst is dealt with during break time, not in the middle of a shift. It was sick. It was systematic. It was intentional. Leonardo took out his phone and began recording discreetly. Not only the moments of direct confrontation, but also the silences. The expressions. The way Rodrigo looked at Natalia as if she were disposable. At noon, during peak hours, something happened that made Leonardo's blood boil. An elderly customer was taking time to find the money in her purse. Natalia waited patiently, with a gentle smile, helping the woman count the coins. Rodrigo appeared out of nowhere. Natalia, you're delaying the line again. Sir, the lady just needs 1 more minute. Call another cashier to handle this customer. You're going to the stockroom to organize deliveries. But sir, I'm in the middle of assisting her. I gave an order. This time he raised his voice. Some customers looked over. Either you go now or you can leave for good. Natalia swallowed her tears, apologized to the woman, and left almost running. The elderly customer looked at Rodrigo with disapproval. That was very rude, young man. Do you want me to call security, or are you going to finish your shopping in silence? The woman turned red with anger, but said nothing more. Leonardo had seen enough. That afternoon, he left the store early and went straight to the headquarters. He gathered the entire executive board in a conference room. Daniel brought the requested reports. Claudia presented the data from the reporting channel. The numbers were devastating. 23 complaints against Rodrigo in the last 18 months. All filed as unfounded or misunderstanding. No real investigation. No consequences. Why? Because Rodrigo met every target. Had the highest productivity in the region. Generated profit. And profit, apparently, bought silence. Tomorrow, Leonardo said, looking at every face in that room, I will reveal who I am in that store. And before that, you will explain to me how you allowed this to happen under everyone's nose. The silence that followed was deafening. Leonardo left the meeting with one certainty: it was not enough to punish Rodrigo. It was necessary to destroy the system that allowed men like him to prosper, while women like Natalia cried alone before the sun rose. Leonardo arrived at the store at 8 o'clock the next morning. No disguise this time. A tailored suit, Italian shoes, the upright posture of someone who commands empires. Behind him, Daniel and Claudia walked in silence, carrying folders filled with documents. The receptionist almost dropped the coffee when she recognized him. Mr. Moretti. We didn't know you were coming today. Exactly. He walked straight past her. Where is Manager Rodrigo? In his office, sir. Leonardo crossed the store with firm steps. Employees stopped what they were doing and stared wide-eyed. Customers whispered as they recognized the billionaire owner of the chain. And then he saw Natalia. She was at the register, assisting a customer, when her eyes met his. For a second, confusion crossed her face. That man. She knew that man. The temporary worker who had spoken to her in the break room. But now he was wearing a suit. Walking as if he owned the place. Because he did. Natalia's face went pale when it clicked. She held onto the edge of the counter so she wouldn't stagger. Leonardo made a discreet gesture with his head, asking her to wait. There would be time for explanations later. Rodrigo was sitting at his desk, reviewing spreadsheets on the computer, when Leonardo opened the door without knocking. What the hell? Rodrigo began angrily, but the sentence died in his throat when he saw who was standing in front of him. All the arrogance evaporated instantly. He stood up so fast that the chair almost tipped over. Mr. Moretti. What a surprise. If I had known you were coming, I would have prepared a proper reception. Sit down. Leonardo's voice was pure ice. Rodrigo sat, confused. You know who I am, don't you, Rodrigo? Of course, sir. You are the founder, the owner. Then you know that I built this company from the ground up. That every store, every employee, every customer represents years of my life. Leonardo stepped closer to the desk, placed both hands on its surface, and leaned forward. And do you know what I discovered over the last 3 days? Rodrigo swallowed hard. There was something in Leonardo's eyes that terrified him. I discovered that you turned this store into a corporate concentration camp. That you humiliate employees daily. That you use fear as a management tool. And that you do all of this while hitting targets and receiving bonuses. Sir, I can explain. Shut up. Leonardo did not shout. He didn't need to. I spent 3 days here disguised as a temporary employee. I saw everything. I recorded everything. And now you are going to listen to me very carefully. Rodrigo was pale as paper. Daniel opened one of the folders and placed documents on the desk. 23 complaints against you in the last 18 months, Leonardo continued. 23 people had the courage to report your behavior. Do you know what happened to those complaints? Silence. They were filed away. All of them. Because you generated profit. Because your numbers were good. Because apparently, in this company, money is worth more than dignity. Mr. Moretti, please, I was just trying to keep the team productive. Productive. Leonardo took out his phone and began playing the videos he had recorded. Rodrigo's voice humiliating Natalia. The veiled threats. The systematic abuse. Rodrigo watched himself on the recordings with growing horror. You are fired, Leonardo said simply. For just cause. Without the right to full severance. And more than that, I am filing a lawsuit against you for workplace harassment. Each of the 23 people who filed complaints will be contacted and may join the lawsuit if they wish. Sir, no. I have bills to pay, And Natalia has a sick mother to take care of. And even so, you psychologically tortured her every day. Leonardo stepped away from the desk, disgusted. Security is already on the way. You have 5 minutes to gather your personal belongings and leave. If you set foot in this store again, you will be arrested for trespassing. Rodrigo wanted to argue, but the expression on Leonardo's face left no room for negotiation. When security arrived to escort him out, Rodrigo walked through the sales floor with his head down, carrying a box with his belongings. All the employees watched in silence. Natalia stood near her register, tears streaming down her face, but this time they were not tears of pain. They were tears of relief. Of liberation. Then Leonardo did something no one expected. He called all the employees for an immediate meeting in the main hall. Customers were politely informed that the store would close for 1 hour. When everyone was gathered, Leonardo climbed onto a small improvised platform. My name is Leonardo Moretti. I am the owner of this chain. And I came here today to apologize. A murmur spread through the crowd. I spent 3 days working undercover in this store. I saw things that deeply shame me. I saw abuse. I saw fear. I saw people being psychologically destroyed while I, in my office, looked only at numbers. He searched for Natalia in the crowd and found her. Natalia, could you come here, please? She hesitated, but walked toward him with unsteady steps. You told me yesterday that a billionaire would never care about a store cashier. That I didn't even know you existed. Leonardo looked her in the eyes. You were right. And I was wrong. Deeply wrong. Natalia couldn't speak. She just cried. From today on, many things are going to change in this company. And you are going to help me make sure that happens. The entire store erupted into applause. 3 months later, Natalia walked into the same store where she used to arrive crying. But this time, everything was different. She was no longer behind the counter. Now she carried a folder and a badge with a new title, Organizational Culture Consultant. Leonardo hadn't lied. He had truly placed her to help transform the company. In the first weeks after Rodrigo's dismissal, Natalia didn't believe it was real. She expected to wake up and discover that everything had been a cruel dream. But then, Leonardo showed up at her house. He didn't come alone. He brought the entire board with him. And in front of Natalia's mother, a 60-year-old black woman fighting cancer, Leonardo made an announcement that would change everything. All of your medical expenses are covered. Complete treatment, medications, hospitalizations if necessary. Everything paid for by the company. And it's not charity. It's the least we can do after failing your daughter. Natalia's mother cried so much that she had to sit down. Natalia hugged her, and for the first time in years, she felt something she had forgotten, hope. But Leonardo didn't stop there. He implemented structural changes throughout the entire chain of stores. A truly anonymous reporting channel, managed by an external company. Mandatory training on workplace harassment for all managers. Periodic evaluations where employees could rate their bosses without fear of retaliation. And most importantly, he made it mandatory for all executives, including himself, to spend at least 1 week per year working undercover in the stores. If you're not willing to do the work your employees do, Leonardo said in an interview that went viral, you don't deserve to be a leader. Natalia became the face of this transformation. She traveled to different branches, spoke with employees, identified problems, and proposed solutions. Her voice, which had once been silenced, now echoed through corporate halls. That day, 3 months later, she was back at the store where it all began, to give a speech to the new hires. My name is Natalia Santos, she began. her voice strong and clear. 3 months ago, I was behind that register over there, crying before the store opened, thinking I had no value, thinking I was disposable. The new employees listened to her attentively. A man entered this store undercover and saw my pain. But that wasn't all he saw. He saw a whole system that allowed people like me to be broken every day. And he decided not only to help me but to fix the system. She paused, looking around the store. You were hired by a company different from the one I joined. But that doesn't mean it's perfect. So I want you to know something very important. Your voice matters. Your well-being matters. Your dignity is non-negotiable. One of the new hires raised his hand timidly. What if my boss doesn't agree with this? Natalia smiled. Then you come to me. And we'll solve it together. After the speech, Leonardo appeared to speak with her. How is your mother? He asked. She's responding well to the treatment. The doctors are optimistic. Natalia smiled. Thank you. For everything. I thank you. You taught me something that no MBA teaches, that a company is worth as much as the dignity it offers to its people. They walked together through the store's floor. Employees greeted both of them with genuine smiles, not with the disguised fear of respect that had been there before. You know, Natalia said, sometimes I think about what would have happened if you hadn't walked into that morning. I think about that too. And it scares me. Why? Because it makes me wonder how many other Natalias are out there, in companies where the owner will never see, never know, never care. Leonardo stopped and looked at her. We haven't solved everything. There's still a lot of work ahead. I know. But at least now we're trying. When Natalia left the store that afternoon, the sun was setting. She looked back one last time at the place that had almost destroyed her, but now represented something different. Transformation. A new beginning. Dignity reclaimed. She picked up her phone and called her mother. Hi, Mom. I'm heading home. Want me to stop by the store? Could you bring that cake you like, dear? We're going to celebrate. Celebrate what? You. Smiling again. Natalia hung up with tears in her eyes. But this time, they were good tears. The story of Natalia and Leonardo didn't have a fairy tale ending. Problems still existed. Not all managers changed. Not all complaints were perfectly resolved. But something fundamental had changed. The silence had been broken. And where there was once fear, now there was hope. Because in the end, it's not the billions that define a person's character. It's what they do when they realize they have the power to change someone's life. Leonardo learned this the hard way. And Natalia taught it the bravest way. If this story touched you, subscribe to the channel and like the video. Leave in the comments where you're watching from and what this story meant to you. Share it with someone who needs to know that their voice matters. Because stories like this need to be told. And changes like this need to happen. One day at a time. One person at a time. One store at a time. Until no one else has to cry alone before the sun rises.